Homeland Security Chief Alejandro Mayorkas says he's preparing for an influx of illegal immigrants that will likely come after Title 42 is terminated. Title 42 allows Border Patrol to turn illegal immigrants back to Mexico if they are considered a public health threat. Mayorkas told CNN that the agency is preparing for an estimated surge of 18,000 illegal border crossings each day.
There is no question that if, in fact, we reach that number, that is going to be an extraordinary strain on our system. But we are preparing for it.
A few members of his own party are concerned that Homeland Security is not ready for a massive jump in illegal immigration. Republicans in Congress are fighting for legislation to keep Title 42 in place. And some Republicans said if they take back the House in November, they will impeach Mayorkas for failing to secure the border. Twitter has suspended and removed Mike Lindell again, less than a day after the MyPillow CEO set up a new account. Lindell rejoined Twitter on Sunday and amassed 20,000 followers within minutes, only to be removed from the platform a short time later. Lindell is a loyal supporter of former President Trump. He was permanently banned from Twitter in January 2021 for his efforts to expose election irregularities. Twitter said Lindell's new account was suspended because it violated the permanent ban. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas has been taking heat over the crisis on the southern border. Another issue he is drawing criticism from is creating what some are calling a ministry of truth, a reference to the same ministry in the Orwellian classic 1984. He took to Fox News Sunday to try and explain.
This is a working group that takes best practices to make sure that in addressing disinformation that presents a threat to the homeland, our work does not infringe on free speech.
Some critics are asking if the introduction to this new working group, as the secretary calls it, was prompted by the takeover of Twitter by billionaire Elon Musk. To break it down earlier, we sat down with pastor and author Lucas Miles. Pastor Lucas Miles, thank you so much for joining us in the Capitol Report.
Good to be here.
Now, I just want to ask you, what do you think has the Democrats so riled up about Elon Musk's Twitter takeover? This guy, he's not an ideologue. If anything, over the years, he's leaned closer to the left.
Yeah, I mean, he's admitted supporting Obama, especially in his first term. I think that what we're seeing with their concern about Musk is he can't be bought, is what it appears. And I think that always makes people on the left nervous when they have somebody who thinks for themselves, who doesn't necessarily just get in line on every single issue. And even though he probably has some left of center views for maybe some conservatives, he still is very much pro-freedom and pro-freedom of speech. And I think that makes the left nervous. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this comes out, because, Musk, obviously, he's sort of a wild card. You don't really know what he's going to do next. And I think he likes it that way.
Now, Senate Democrats are talking about hauling him in for a hearing to question him in front of Congress. What do you think they're trying to achieve by doing this?
I mean, what's interesting, first of all, is that they weren't hauling in previous social media figures, or at least for hauling these guys in when they're kicking off Americans off of a platform, but allowing, say, North Korea or Putin to remain, or whatever that is. And so I think that what we're seeing here is this double standard that exists on the left, that they continue to really just push policies that are going to benefit them and benefit their narrative and really restrict freedom of speech. And so it'll be interesting to see if Musk complies with this, if he shows up, if he's willing. I don't see the guy being afraid of a stage or a platform to share his perspective, but I think it's going to be just very interesting waters that they're wading in right now.
Now, the Biden administration has just announced that they're going to be establishing this disinformation board. Some say that it could be in reaction to the Twitter takeover by Musk, and fears that information is going to start flowing freely again. Governor DeSantis of Florida said that he is going to do everything he can to prevent this. What power, or what do you think state level officials can do?
It's one of the great things about America is that we have state power. And I think that as long as, there's elements of our Constitution that are still allowed to play out in this country, states have the right to, be able to take certain stands on this. And obviously, DeSantis has no problem, enforcing his own rights within the limits of law, to be able to do so. It is interesting, the timing of this, when you see how, the start of sort of this disinformation board, what's being called this Ministry of Truth, and compared to, what we saw in the Third Reich and other, dictatorships in the past. The timing of this with the takeover takeover of Twitter, I think is very suspect. But I think Americans have the right to be concerned about this, and I think that this is something we have to watch closely. And there's really no place for this left or right. The best thing for freedom of speech is the free market, is the free press, and there's always going to be opinions out there that maybe have more weight than others. But I think this is where it puts the onus back on the American people to think for themselves and do their homework.
So what has you most concerned about this? You just said that it didn't matter if it was the left or the right. So you're saying if the Republicans established something, you'd be equally against it?
Yeah, 100%. I don't think that it is the place of the government to control the propaganda. I mean, it's one thing to have a PR team to be able to put messaging out there and those things. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is actually controlling and regulating. In theory, this is under the Department of Homeland Security. In theory, what the American people's ability is to share stories or news, and now that they don't have a place like Twitter in their back pocket, I think they're now looking to do this on a policy level, which I think is even more dangerous than what we saw with big tech.
Do you think that it's too far to say that this could be the entry point for communism, or is it a slippery slope?
I think we've been on the slippery slope for socialism in this country for some time. I think that critical theory has allowed to take root in our schools. It's in we see corporations like Disney and Netflix that have embraced elements of this, and I think that this is a culture war like we've never had before. I mean, Reagan said it best. Every generation has to defeat socialism or communism, and we're in that fight right now ourselves.
Pastor Lucas Miles, thank you.
Thank you.
Former President Donald Trump is being charged $10,000 per day until he hands over business documents being sought by New York Attorney General Letitia James. The fines began last Tuesday. Trump and two of his lawyers filed affidavits with New York Supreme Court saying that searches of inventories did not produce any of the documents the Attorney General is seeking. But New York Supreme Court Judge Arthur Engoron rejected the affidavits. Engoron said they lacked sufficient detail about how and where the search was made or where Trump kept his files. Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson may be entering the 2024 race for president. The Republican governor told CNN's State of the Union that the possibility of running against former President Trump will not dissuade him. Hutchinson said that former President Trump did a lot of good things for the country, but he thinks the U.S. needs to go in a different direction. Hutchinson was the Department of Homeland Security's first Undersecretary for Border and Transportation Security from 2003 to 2005. Alongside Governor Asa Hutchinson, former Vice President Mike Pence, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, and Maryland Governor Larry Hogan are all possible Republican presidential candidates.